everybody. So our first slide talks about the foldable that you have either printed or gotten in class. You'll just cut it in half and you'll take your pages or glue them, it probably holds them better, into your notebook. 1, and then 2 will be underneath that, and then 3, and 4 will be underneath that. And then you can fold down the top of the tab and just have a reminder that this is rational numbers. And label it. And then we'll put in the learning targets next to it, and those represent what we're going to do for the review unit. So you can kind of check off where you are as we progress through these. Okay, so we're starting with operations with rational numbers. And rational numbers, we're going to review first adding and subtracting. So in your notes, you're going to fill in rational number is a number. It can be written as the ratio of 2 integers. So when I say ratio, I mean a fraction, like 1/2, 5/2, or and of integers, that means we can have positive numbers, and we can have negative numbers. So rational numbers include positives and negatives, fractions, also decimals. Okay, so decimals, we have kind of 2 that we think about in rational numbers. The terminating decimal is a decimal that ends, so a terminating decimal would just be like 0.75. Whereas a repeating decimal is a decimal that has numbers that repeat. So we might have 0.3333, 1/3, or 0.66666. And we have some fractions that just continually repeat their pattern. Okay, so more stuff about rational numbers. Numbers that can be written as fractions, like you just saw, terminating decimals, and repeating decimals are examples of rational numbers. So a rational number is a number, therefore, that can be written as a fraction, A over B, where both numbers A and B are integers. Oops, just go back for a second. So over here we have a model, and when we're thinking of numbers and classifying them, it's kind of the history of numbers. First, numbers to represent things were called natural. Counting numbers, we had more names, things like that. And then whole numbers included a 0, so we needed this place to start. Then, as people were borrowing money, were going into debt, we did a way to define that, so integers. So they include negative numbers, the 0, and the natural numbers. And then our last category for now is for rational numbers, where we added decimals into this whole thing. So rational numbers can be all of these, plus fractions, decimals, repeating decimals. I already knew a decimal there, just 4-5, 4-5, 4-5. Okay? All right. So you guys can pause the video at any time and write down what you need to. Okay. All right. Our next thing, we have a slide on calculators. So if you are unfamiliar with fraction button or how to get fractions to decimals to fractions, and you're using one of these calculators, just hit the video and you can watch it and find out just how to get from fraction to decimal to fraction. It's super easy. Okay. Oops. I'm going to click right there. Going back here on to our next slide. So moving on, we are going to write rational numbers as decimals. So first we're going to take fraction and turn it into a decimal. So right here, In your calculator, you can just put in -2, ABC 1, ABC 4, and you're going to get out 0.25. So -2.25. You can also do that manually if we just said 4 divided, oops, sorry, 1 divided by 4. And we would get the same outcome if we did it by hand. We put the decimal here, carry it up. We have 4 and 10 goes in twice. Carry in 1, we have 2 left over, 4 goes into 20.25 times. So -2.25, we'll keep the negative there. 5 divided by 11, do that in your calculator, and we're just going to have 0.45 repeating. And so then you can just put the repeating sign there. Okay? So in your calculator, work on adding negatives, dividing the numbers, their fractions, using your ABC key to put in like the 7 and 3 keys. The answers are at the end of this video. So try it out and then you can check your answers when this is done. Okay. The other way for switching back and forth with rational numbers and practicing is taking a fraction and turning it into a decimal. So decimals have place value, and there's a place value chart here. So when you have -0.26 and you're putting it into simplest form, there are 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. So we're just going to kind of count off here. Oh, okay, that gets us into the hundreds column. So I have 26 hundredths there, negative. And I'm just going to simplify it to 13. And I'm done. So, like on 6, you're going to have 1, 2, 3. So you're just going to go 1, 2, 3. And then you'll see it's 125 over 1,000. So try those out, pause the video, and then when you're done, you're going to check your answers at the end of the video. Okay. Next up, we're going to think about how we add and subtract rational numbers. So when we are adding same signs, we are adding and we keep the sign. So same signs, when we're adding, we keep the sign. So if they're both positives, we keep the positive. If we have 2 negatives, we keep the negative if we're adding. If we have different signs, we subtract the 2 and get the sign a little larger. We did that a little bit in class, and you guys had some great examples. Okay, so your turn, just practicing some of this. One of them that's a little tricky is when you're minusing a minus. So if you want to kind of add that keep, change thing to it, just think you keep the first number, you change the sign, change the sign. So in the end, you're really just adding them together. So when you're minusing a minus, think keep, change. But on number 12, you're just minusing 2 different signs. So then that goes back to that first rule where you, when you're subtracting, you keep the sign of the larger one. And checking the negative, you get the difference between the 2. So go ahead and try this your turn, and your answers will again be at the end. Pause and work through it. Okay. So we're also going to look at fractions. Same rules apply, but you just need common denominators. So, but you also have your calculators to use your ABC buttons. But be careful because you have to put in the negative sign. It's not the subtract sign, it's the negative sign. And again, you got your keep, change. Keep your negative, change your signs if they are 2 negatives. Okay, try those out and then test check your answers. Okay, so here's an application of how we use our positives and negatives. So I'll give you guys a chance to read through it, We have a tunnel in the water. The bottom of the boat is 2.1 feet below the surface. So you want to draw up yourself a picture. So here's the boat in the water. If that boat sinks a little bit, 2.1 feet below the surface, right? And the top of the boat is 8.7 feet above the surface. So above the surface right here, we have 8.7, we have 2.1 there. But when you tow the boat on a trailer, it's 1.3 feet above the ground. So this whole boat, when towed in a whole different place, is, so when it's on the ground here, it's 1.3 above because of the trailer. So the question is, can the boat fit through this underpass that's 11 feet 8 inches tall? So you guys are going to have to figure that out. So pause the video, figure it out, and then we'll come back and talk about it. And we'll see what you got for your answers. Yes or no is going to be an outcome. Okay? All right. So that's the end of our first part of our guided notes. That's pages 1 and pages 2. And so I said the answers were going to be at the end. So your turn number 1. Go ahead and check and see if you did okay on those, or let me know if I made a mistake. And on this one, I just need to do this, right? And then your turn 2, decimals to fractions. See if you got those right. Your turn 3, when you're adding and subtracting decimals, you should have gotten these answers. And your turn 4, adding and subtracting fractions. You should have gotten those answers. All right, and the one I have to add on there is the clearance. So can the boat go through? It ends up being 12.1 instead of 11.8, so it's too big. No on the boat going under that tunnel. Okay. All right, so these are a little longer than usual. We have 2 sections. So our next section is multiplying and dividing, but this goes really fast because you can use your calculators on this. So just to remember the rules of multiplication, multiply the digits ignoring the decimals. The product will have the same number of numbers behind the decimal as the multiplicand and multiplier combined. So in our example, 12.8 times 6.3, you put it into the calculator, you're going to have that many decimals after. That being said, we have a 0 there, so it's going to end up with 86.4 in your calculator. There is an O, but it gets dropped because it's not significant there. You don't need to have it on there. So it does have the 3 there, but 2 are going to show up in the calculator. Okay, on the other side, we do division, the no vote. We're going to have, in order to make the divisor a whole number, multiply it by a power of 10 when you're doing it by hand. Multiply the dividend by the same power of 10, both sides, underneath, the outside number and the underneath number. Divide, bring the decimal directly above the answer. So 43.7 divided by 19, what the calculator is doing, right, is 19 into 43.7. You don't have to multiply anything because your divisor is a whole number, so you're okay. But if it was 1.9, you'd have to multiply by a power of 10. Okay, but in your calculator, 43.7 divided by 19. Okay, for decimal number. Okay. So in your calculator, just working with signs and stuff. So hopefully, when you do 4.5 times 3, you're going to get 13.5. You do minus 5 divided by minus 2. The 2 negatives become positive. It's 2.5. 3 negative divided by negative times negative. You're going to have positive. Positive divided by positive is positive. Okay. So, oops, I'm just spending a moment there. So if the signs are the same, the product is going to be positive. And if the signs are different, the product or quotient is negative. One thing I talked about the other day, if you love, that's positive, it's going to be positive. If you hate, to hate, well, you love, so it's positive. But here, if you hate to love, then you just hate. So it's negative. So that's a key way to remember it. Okay? All right, so we're going to go, that's our decimal multiplication. And here I'm just going to clean this out. And then we'll write here. So we change each mixed number to an improper fraction. And then you're going to multiply the numerators. You're going to multiply the denominators. And then you're going to simplify. So just to remember, we can use our calculators. Our calculators are doing 7/8. That's good. We're going to change the improper fraction. So 1 times 2 plus 1. So we're going to have 7/8 times 3/2. And then we're going to multiply the top, the numerator, 21, and denominator, 16. You can leave it in a proper fraction, or you can make it a mixed number, 1 and 5, 16. So your calculator will do that for you. If you do the 1 and ABC 1, ABC 2, but just remembering what we're doing. So if we're doing division, we have the improper fraction, just like we did for multiplication. Rewrite the first fraction, change the division to multiplication, find the inverse of the second fraction. So improper fraction, 2 times 8 plus 3 is 11/4. Change this to multiplication, flip the second one, and multiply it like it's multiplication. So 3/8, or 8 goes in there, 4 and 1/8 time. So, a quick review on multiplication. Okay, just kind of rephrasing it, looking at it in a different way. Keep the same, keep, change, flip. So keep the first fraction the same, change the division sign to multiplication, flip the second fraction. Luckily, we're working with calculators, so we can start not worrying about this too bad. Okay, so here's your step to do on the board. So you've got 3/5 times 2/3, and you're going to multiply straight across, right? 6/15. You have the negative times the positive, and negative times the negative. You do the 8 to 8, so love, and 15 24. Then negative 3/10 plus negative 4/5, so you are dividing. So we've got negative 3/10, change the sign, flip it, multiply. Fifteen 40ths, and you have 2 negatives, so this is positive. And then on your end one, about the improper fraction. You multiply times 8 over 1. This one you can cross out the 8s. Just going to get 11. Okay? So just to remind ourselves, if the signs are the same, product or quotient is positive when we are dividing and multiplying. Okay? And then we just look at the pattern here. When the signs are different, it's going to be a negative, right? So change the sign, flip the second one. Multiply the numerators times 1. Negative 4/3. Here, improper fraction, 2 times 2 is 4, 5 halves. We're going to keep the sign, right? It's multiplication times negative 3/4. I'm just going to say it's negative 15/8. We'll just keep it improper. And then here, we're going to keep, change, flip. These can cancel. We've got 1 there, 1 there. We can go 1 here and 2. So really, in the end, our answer is a positive 2. And then finally, this last one, you have negative 7/10 times a fourth. So we're just going to multiply straight across 7 fourths. So with the patterns that we're looking at, if the signs are different, then that means we have the product of quotient is negative. Product or quotient, right? So did I do that right? Negative and a positive is negative. Positive and a negative is negative. Negative and negative, go back up here, is positive. Negative, positive is negative. Okay. So then you guys have your turn here. And you're just going to practice multiplying and dividing. And again, the answers are at the end of the video. So do these first. Be honest about it. Make sure you're doing it okay. And just pause the video, get them done, and see what you can do with that. And then yeah, this one, thinking about why we focus on positives and negatives. So this one is the investor owns stock A, and B, and C. What is the mean change in the value of the stocks? So you guys can figure that out. The mean change, there are 3 amounts. So remember, a mean is you add the total, and then you're going to divide it by 3. So if you add it all up, you'll get a number and divide it by 3. And the mean change, that will be it. So how much is this changing between the stocks? How low is this going to be? So I'll let you work on that, see if you can get the answer, and then we'll check it out. Back in. Okay, and then we're just going to finish up with exponents. So exponents just mean we take the base and we multiply it that many times. So the base is negative 3/4, and it is raised to a power of 2. This can change the color so it comes out a little bit better. So negative 3/4. So we have negative 3/4 times negative 3/4. So then we're just applying the things we just learned. Negative times a negative, we get to 8 and love is positive. 3 times 3 is 9. And 4 times 4 is 16. So if you square negative 3/4, you get a positive 9/16. Okay? So exponents is how many times you multiply it together. So here's our challenge. Think about if we have negative 2 raised to the power of 2. Is the outcome going to be positive or negative? If we have negative 2 raised to the power of 3, is the outcome going to be negative or positive? If we have negative 2 raised to the power of 4, outcome is negative or positive. And negative 2 raised to the power of 5. Okay? So we're just looking straight at this chart. This one's positive, this one's negative. this one's positive, this one's negative. So describe the pattern that that chart shows. Okay. Kind of a challenge to think about. All right, good job. Once you finish all those things, then go ahead and look at how you're going to be honest, learn from your mistake, go back and check them, correct them. In our classroom, mistakes are expected, respected, inspected, and corrected. Okay, so when you were multiplying or dividing, here were the answers to that. And then the answers to our challenge, where the even-numbered exponents with negative bases are positive, and odd-numbered exponents with negative bases are negative. And then the answer to that question about the accountant is average. It's not doing very well. So their average is equal to negative 111. So that's $111.20. He's losing on his stocks. The investor needs to change up his portfolio. Okay, thanks. Good job on your first guided notes. That was a lot to review, but it all goes under rational numbers. Okay, thanks.